Hey, KID crew, welcome to the very first Table Talk of 2025. We have a fantastic panel, as you can see. A great big thank you to Gandolfo's for providing our lunch. We were able to break a little bread together, and now we're going to get down to the business of really collaborating on some of the biggest issues that are facing our community and the country as a whole. Table Talk is powered by our friends at Classic Interiors. Go check out what they have to offer. They have beautiful tables that will be perfect for you to gather your friends and family around and have those important conversations that have the power and potential to make a huge difference. Right now, let's go ahead and meet our panel. We'll start right here with my friend Dave Snell.
Hello, my name is Dave Snell, and I am president of the Idaho Falls African American Alliance. And Jolyn is one of our members, and so hence I get a chance to come down and talk table talk with the other speakers. So looking forward to it. Thanks for the invite.
Oh, of course.
And
if you want to talk pretty
yeah.
close,
Absolutely.
We want to make sure we hear everything you guys have to say. Just get close to the mic.
Yeah. I'm Hailey, Holland. I'm the director of the Counseling Center at College of Eastern Idaho.
Hey, my name is Kyle Peck. I am the development coordinator, and I oversee the Eastern Idaho part of the state for the Idaho Food Bank.
I'm Jody Cornilsen with the Alzheimer's Association. I'm the outreach manager for the Greater Idaho chapter.
Well, KID crew, there's a lot for us to cover as it is a brand new year, and a lot of people are anticipating what kind of changes and transformation might be in store for us. I want to kick things off by just reminding you that Thursday, January 16th, is the 18th annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. banquet. Our speaker is going to be Dr. Pete Miller. I had a chance to chat with him by phone a couple of days ago. If you missed that interview, it is really insightful. He's a man full of wisdom, and you can find that at kidnewsradio.com. Just go to Jolyn's interviews, and you'll find it right there. Our theme this year is the power of one. And I want to start right there because as we look at a lot of the divisions that are clearly on display throughout our country and even the world, there's no question that the power of one is something that has the possibility of helping to make some important inroads. So I'll just start right there. We started with Dave. So Jody, we'll start with you. To you, what does the power of one mean?
For me, I'm one of those people, I've said this for a long time, that sometimes these issues are so big and you feel that you can't do anything. Really, you can, because sometimes it is just what Dave said earlier. It's just being kind and looking people in the eye and smiling at them and making a difference just one step at a time. And so the power of one to me means we only are one person. We're only in charge of ourselves, really. So what can we do to make a difference?
I love that. It starts right here and doing what we can right where we are to make that difference. Kyle, how about you as you think about this concept of the power of one? What comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I think I'd have to go off of what Jody was saying, that it really kind of comes down to individual responsibility and interactions within a community. I come from we all come from kind of a nonprofit, public-oriented background, but at the food bank, we don't have any regard for, someone's background, their history, their politics, or anything like that. And so we really focus on helping people, one-on-one as individuals, and that extends to both sides of the interaction, right? So like we as individuals have the power to treat people with respect and with dignity regardless of their circumstances. And so I think that really is kind of where I'm coming from in this kind of conversation of the power of one, is that we have our own individual responsibility to treat everybody with this respect and this dignity regardless of where they're coming from and their circumstances.
I love that. So true. It's being able to see the value in people. Hailey, how about for you?
Yeah, I kind of just want to go like ditto for what Jody said because I really liked that a lot. But I think that the way I look at it is the way we regard like our situations, and whether it's something that's just involves us or whether it involves everybody else, like the way we treat something if it's going well is a lot different than how we treat something if it's going poorly. But if we poured kind of the same sort of energy we pour into things that are, if somebody's on a really nice, like we've been talking about like working out has come up a couple times, right? Like jokingly and all of that. But like if someone is on a really good schedule, right, and they're doing that every day, it's easier for them to just continue with that schedule. But if somebody hasn't been doing that, it's harder for them to start doing that and get back into it. And when it comes to how we treat other people and how the greater society is and how everybody kind of regards each other and treats each other, it's hard to ignore that there are a lot of things that are really messy and really aren't like okay. But if we treat it like it is like in really good shape, then we tend to put better stuff into it.
That's the power of our thoughts, really, and being able to frame things in a positive way and look for those small and simple steps that can get us on the right track. I love that you pointed out that consistency, too, because when we think about making a huge difference, consistency is really part of it. And Dave, we've had a lot of fun, haven't we, really exploring this concept, the power of one, as we have worked to plan this year's MLK banquet.
That is correct. And I think our group, Jolyn, we have a real small group. And so that power of one, it really resonates in our group because, it's almost, we it's just a few of us, but the things that we're doing, the first responders barbecue, it's just an opportunity to show our gratitude, to give back to some of those people that are putting their lives on the line for us all the time. And it doesn't take a whole lot to do it, just the power of one, when we get together, join our efforts, that compounding, it just helps to make that big difference. And so that's really what we're trying to do. The banquet, is another opportunity to just show our community, to just provide a safe space for our community to come together and just hang out. And I think we've said it before, when we get to know each other and just sit down and realize that, hey, we're all the same. We're all the same. We have a few different things, but we're just the same, And so it's important for us to do what we can to leave this place better than we found it. So
I love that because that's something we've been hearing a lot about with the passing of the 39th president, President Jimmy Carter. A lot of people pointing to the fact that he is someone who really did leave the world a little better than he found it. And today, being that funeral, we had an opportunity to see something pretty unique, something we don't see all the time, and that was all 5 U.S. living presidents together in one room. Lots of differences of politics there, but it was nice to see that unity, to see people shaking hands and chatting. You saw a moment where President Barack Obama and President-elect Trump were having a very lengthy conversation. We couldn't hear what they were saying, but obviously it was very cordial, and we know they're on opposite ends of the spectrum. One of the things that was mentioned today at this funeral, and it came from President Biden, is the fact that he learned from President Carter that the strength of character is more than the title or the power that we hold. It's the strength to understand that every person should be treated with respect and dignity. And those words really resonated with me as I listened to him saying that, because sometimes we see examples of power or title or status taking center stage, and this is giving us an opportunity to step back and say, really, when you get down to it, it's so much more than that. And we were kind of chatting about that as we were enjoying some lunch from Gandolfo's. So I just want to let all of you just kind of jump in. What comes to your mind about that concept of really getting away from power and title and status and just getting down to how we treat people?
Sure, I'll start. I think that, one thing that we see a lot when we're working with people struggling with food insecurity is that, people come from every background, all walks of life, and they're all at different, places in their life, and it just takes a lot of different forms. And so we see people come in that they might have had a really high-paying job with a good title, and they have a house and they have a car, but maybe something happened and their business got restructured, and then they, got laid off or something, and now they were already living maybe paycheck to paycheck, even with that title, and now they're in a position where they need help from somebody else. And so we really try very hard to work with people regardless of their circumstances and treat them the same in that regard. And so, I just think that it is a really valuable thing to kind of keep in mind, is that we do have these things, we have these titles, we have these this power and this status, but all of us are here together, and we're all struggling with the same things, and we're all living in this same world together, and it could really be any one of us that all of a sudden is the script is flipped, and now we're the ones in need of support, and we are the ones without a title or without the power. And so I just think that making sure that we are, again, like you've mentioned, treating everybody with that respect and that dignity, it's beneficial across the board, because we never know when our circumstances are going to change or when their circumstances are going to change. And so, we just don't want to take advantage of what we may or may not have in the moment, and just be grateful for what we have.
Kyle, I love that you brought to the forefront the idea that sometimes it's really easy to make snap judgments. We buy into certain stereotypes, but there's always more to every individual story than initially meets the eye. And so I think it's important to take that step back and recognize that there are no identical situations, and everybody has unique needs. Anybody else have anything they want to add along that line of just working to treat everybody with dignity and respect?
As I get ready to retire, I'm the old guy in the workplace now, and so we have lots of young guys that are coming in, and so it is important. We have to remember to be respectful, and that's it's a good lesson. It's a good lesson. You see the young guys coming in, and as he said, nobody's situation is the same. It's always we all have a little different situations, but we all have something that we can bring to the table and contribute. And so, what is that thing? What are we bringing? What are we contributing? And so, those are things that once we find out, we just need to act on those things, because it's a moment in time, as this funeral service today. You never know, as he said, when our turn is gonna come, and what are they gonna say about you? I was thinking about that earlier. Man, when I go, what are they gonna say? What are they gonna say? And so we just want to make sure that you don't live to please other people, but you do want to do the best that you can while you're here. And so,
as you were talking, Dave, that really made me think about the power of a legacy, and we all are creating our legacy right now. Our legacy is created every single day, the way that we live our life, and you don't get to opt out of having a legacy. Either you're proactive about it, or your legacy really becomes kind of a legacy of nothingness. But we all are, whether we recognize it or not, creating that legacy.
Sure.
I was in a for-profit industry for the first 20 years of my career, and I didn't realize what was missing. I knew something was missing, and I wasn't happy, and I didn't feel good about that legacy that was happening. And, circumstances changed. I got into the nonprofit industry, which I never in a million years saw coming, and I met volunteers, and I was managing volunteers, and our the Alzheimer's Association, we use volunteers to reach more community members. And I thought, oh my gosh, I need to be a volunteer. That's what I'm missing. And so I strongly believe that if you're giving back in some way, that you are creating a legacy, even if it's just for yourself and only you know about it. But I think it's a really big piece to talk about in how we feel when we give back to the community. And I know it changed my life, for sure.
The power of service, that's something Dr. King talked a lot about. He said everyone can be great because everyone can serve. And there's something to that, Jody. When you're feeling down and out, when you flip the script and start looking at other people and how you can help, it really brings a whole new perspective to what you're going through.
Yeah, for sure.
And Hailey, I bet in your line of work in the counseling center at the College of Eastern Idaho, you see some real examples of people kind of finding their way through some difficult and dark situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that I always come back to is that, like, no matter how different someone's circumstances are to my own, we always can find some common ground. And I think that it's easy to find the things that are different. Like, those are really apparent, I think, to all of us, and they're easier to spot. But there have been times where I'm like, is that like not everybody's a good fit for everyone, and that's a conversation for a different day of like therapy and fit and stuff like that. But there is always common ground. It just sometimes takes a little bit longer and a little bit more effort to find it. But I'd say that's one of the biggest things that I would like to emphasize is just there's a lot more to it than I think that we can see on the surface when it comes to that commonality.
There is always that common ground, and it's kind of interesting. I've been focused lately, KID crew, as you know, on the fact that sometimes in that political realm, the word cooperation gets a bad rap, and people see it as a sign of not being loyal to the party or to your politics. But the truth is, you can lean in with some curiosity, and you don't have to co-sign on other people's ideas. But when you start to understand where they're coming from, that creates this magic energy that helps us all move forward together. So we don't have to get it twisted and think that in order to find common ground, we have to give up on what is important to us. We can still cling to all of that while understanding that unity is what drives us forward. You know, there are a lot of political divisions that are on full display, and one of the really interesting moments in the funeral today for me was hearing President Gerald Ford's son read a eulogy that he had written before he died for President Carter. And one of the things that stood out to me is the fact that he said that Jimmy and I forged a friendship that transcends politics. And I love that. And he said, we took advantage of one of the rights of former presidents. We decided to forget that either one of us had ever said any harsh words about each other in the heat of battle. And I think that friendship that they were able to forge is really inspiring because, as you know, history shows us that Jimmy Carter defeated President Gerald Ford. And yet, despite all of that, despite the fact that they were in a heated battle, they found some common ground and they came together and developed friendships. And when we see those examples of people reaching across the aisle, that's where some of the biggest gains happen. Wouldn't you agree?
Sure.
Yes. I just, sorry, that was a lot of yes.
Straight to the point. Yes.
Well, we're not listening. If we're not listening, then we can't hear different thoughts or different ideas, and that's hard for everyone, I think, to step back and say, well, there's a reason why somebody thinks the way that they do. What is that reason? It could be more in line with what you were thinking than you thought. So yeah, we need to listen to each other and be more kind about what's being said. And maybe it's coming from a different space than you think it is. It's not always just that, like you're like, there's so many things going on outside of a person's thoughts. And yeah, you just have to listen and hear what they are saying, because you might learn something.
You're saying we're products of our environment?
Yeah, maybe. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one thing that I really try to kind of live by is that everyone's trying to just do the best they can, right? And that their best may look different than your best. Their best may be, they might be having a bad day, and their best maybe not their best. But everyone's just trying to do the best they can. And so understanding and recognizing that fact, I think, kind of allows us to break down some of those barriers a little bit, to just say, like, okay, you're coming from a different place. You've got these different circumstances. You have this different perspective. But, like, I recognize the fact that you are trying to do good. Largely speaking, I think most people are. And so recognizing that, I think, kind of going back to, finding common ground, it allows people to find that common ground in, we're all just trying to do our best. We're trying to be helpful. We're trying to do something good. And that alone, I think, is enough for a lot of people to be able to work with folks who may have, entirely different viewpoints.
That really does open the door to some grace. And a whole lot more grace could go a long ways in getting us on a better path, for sure.
Absolutely. So I think that, like, going off of what both of you said, like, really, I think it's easy to jump to conclusions about what somebody's intent is and to assume they mean certain things. And it's something I feel like really changed my life when I'm still figuring this out, but when I started to just assume people's intentions, like that, like they weren't, like someone kind of says something in a certain way, like, does it really change anything other than getting everybody, like, all angry at each other if we're going to assume that they're coming from a bad place? And so my assistant at work, her name is Pam, she is somebody who has this down to, like, an art. Like, it doesn't matter what gets thrown at her, she's just like, oh, cool, like, that's nice, like, awesome. And I have never met anybody who has that skill more down than she does. Like, she's like, oh, I think they were having kind of a hard day. Like, it's not about her, and she knows that. And it is my favorite, like, quality, and I love that. And I think that if we brought more of that to the table, like, it would change everything, honestly.
So true. We tend to think everything is about us, but if we can step back and say, it's not really about us, there's more to the story. And oftentimes it is that somebody is carrying a heavy load that we know nothing about, or they've had a rough day. So I love that perspective of just recognizing it's not really about us, even if it feels personal.
Yeah, sometimes the work gets monotonous. It's repetitive, and you're going and going. But as she said, we got to see the big picture, and I think that happens outside of work as well. Focus on the big picture. What's the big picture? The big picture. In this funeral we saw today, a lot of us, the big picture was humanity. Humanity. That's what we have to remember. No man is an island, I guess, is again, I have to say that because so many of us, we forget. We think that, man, it's all about me. No, it's not about you. It's not really about you. And so we just focus on the big picture and just see how we can add how we can make that picture more beautiful. I guess I'll say that.
Expanding that horizon
Expanding
is so important.
Yes.
Another big moment in this funeral was when Walter Mondale, who was the vice president of Jimmy Carter's son, read a eulogy that he had written, and he focused on a summary that they had come up with to really describe their time in office, and it was, we told the truth, we obeyed the law, and we kept the peace. And President Carter liked that so much that he had it inscribed on the wall of the Carter Center. So I want to zero in for a second on the part of that about peace. What can we do as a community to lead out in peacekeeping efforts? Anybody?
Sure, yeah. I'll
You're
go.
all so polite. No one wants to just jump right in.
Yeah, I'll go. I think that one thing that really helps in kind of that aspect of peace, I suppose, is getting involved with your community and going out and maybe volunteering and doing stuff like that, where you're out in the community meeting other people from different walks of life with different circumstances and things like that, because it really does give you a new perspective on where other folks are coming from. And so, to try to generate this peace, whether it's political, social, whatever it may be. Like, for example, at the food bank, if people come in and they're helping put together these bags that we give out to people that may be homeless that come in, right? We have specific foods and stuff that we try to give them so that they don't need to have can openers. They don't need to have stoves. They don't, they can still have a meal of food without any of the luxuries that we, kind of take for granted sometimes. And I think even just something simple as coming in to volunteer and getting your hands on and actually putting together this bag, and you can see, like, okay, this is going to go to someone who may be homeless in this community that I am in right now. This may go to the guy down the street, who's on the corner asking for help. I think it really extends a lot of that. So we were talking about grace earlier, but it just kind of gives you a really hands-on first-person perspective of what other people are going through. And I think that is one of the key components of, generating this peace across divisions, whatever divisions they may be, is just kind of understanding more about your community and what people in your community are doing and struggling with and dealing with.
As you're saying that, I'm thinking about that idea of trying to walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. And when we stop and try to understand, listening and understanding, I think that's the beginning of creating more peace.
There's always that knee-jerk reaction,
Right.
to whatever topic, and you don't. So if you can step back and have a moment that there's no ill intent, maybe, usually not, then maybe you have that moment of grace or understanding, and to me that is the beginning of peace. That's a conversation that we might be having with each other that looks peaceful and thoughtful and kind. We can be kind. I know we can.
It's true, right? And in a time where people are disconnecting rapidly and unfriending each other over political ideas, I mean, I'm sure you guys were very familiar with the fact that a lot of people were getting uninvited to Thanksgiving dinner and Christmas. There were a lot of stories coming up in the news cycle about how somebody's vote or their ideology was getting them alienated from their own family. People did not want to sit at the same table. And I believe that's why what we're doing here is so important. And I've told you before, KID crew, that it was Dave Snell here who kind of inspired this idea in me. Because, Dave, I remember we were having a meeting one time and you talked about how your mother always taught you that when you come to the table and break bread with people,
Sure.
that's where the magic starts.
That's where the magic happens, and especially if you got a good cook. But yeah, and another thing that you said that I love sports, and I will always wear my hat just because it's going to strike up a conversation. Somebody may not know me from the man on the moon, but if they see this Vikings hat, hey man, I like that hat. I'm a Viking fan, and I see it all the time. My daughter took me back to Minneapolis to see the Vikings. And while we were there, she was just nervous. It was so many people. We come from Idaho to Minneapolis, and we're in the Mall of America, and man, it's just people going everywhere. And she's just nervous, and I'm talking to people. I'm seeing her. I'm saying, "Hey, sweetheart, just relax. It's so much fun to just talk to people and be in an area. Sports is that area that commonality that we have. That you see." We all like the same team, and so it's easy to share conversations, and that's the way food is. And that's part of the premise of our banquet. We have dinner, we get together, we meet other people that we may not have met if we didn't come to the banquet, and so we have a lot of fun. We bring interesting speakers in, and we sit down, break bread, as Jolyn said, and we have friends, we make friends, and that's, to me, it makes our community better to know that all of these people are part of our community. They may not do what I do. I may not do what they do, but we're all a part of the same community. And what concerns them about the community should concern should concern me, or vice versa. What concerns me should concern them. And we work together to make it a better place for everybody. So
And it starts with those conversations.
those conversations, yeah.
And I loved how you talked about breaking down some of the barriers that keep us separated, because when we can get beyond those, that's where that potential for lasting peace and important progress and creating more unity really starts.
That's the magic.
That is the magic ingredient.
That's the
I
magic.
think we just need a really good cook then. Is
Yes.
that- Yeah.
Yeah.
Break some bread.
Break some bread, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So my thoughts on peace are so something I really appreciate what all of you said is that it's very contrary to what we often see like on social media. What people often say is like, stop doing this, like don't do this, which like certainly there are things people need to stop doing, like there's nothing, like that's absolutely correct, but what are we going to do instead? And everything you guys talked about was like things we can do and we should be doing versus like things we should stop. And that's like from a psychological perspective how we affect change. Like if you just tell somebody to stop doing something, like if you're not intentional about it, they might pick something worse up. Like that's often how that works. And so it's being intentional about it and having those specific things you're moving towards, like that works a lot better. Like if I tell my kids, no more candy today, which we had those, I think we all had those conversations with our families, probably like over the holidays, right? But if it's like, instead of being like, no more candy, it's like, what are we gonna eat instead? It's like, we get to, my kids do actually like vegetables a lot, so it's like, we get to eat these vegetables, like, woo, super exciting. That's gonna go over a lot better than don't do this. And I think that when we focus on what we are going to do, that's really helpful. And I think if we can't affect peace in our own homes, then I don't know how we're going to do it outside of our homes.
Sure.
And that's something that my family's being really intentional about. We were working on, we didn't love the direction we were headed on how we were speaking to each other. And it hadn't gotten like really bad, but I was like, I don't love this. And so we sat down and we decided like, what are we going to do instead? How are we going to like resolve like our differences? I have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old, and there are differences sometimes, with those, that age group. And so we like determined how we were going to address it in a very like action focused way, and it was really more focused on what we were going to do versus what we were going to stop, because it really is more about where are you going to actually direct that energy.
Who mentioned social media? I really think there is a disconnect because of social media, and we see what we see that is not realistic necessarily on social media, and then people don't have that face-to-face. I'm certainly know most people would not say what they say on social media to somebody's face, and that is a big disconnect. If not saying that social media is going away, we're on it right now.
Right.
It's actually really great when it's there's good and bad to everything, but we have to remember to have those conversations and look folks in the face and think about what we're commenting on. I wish there was sometimes I just wish there was more positivity on social media in general,
There is a lot of power in positivity, and you're exactly right, Jody. Sometimes we see these images on social media, and it seems as if other people's lives are absolutely perfect, but there's always more to it. We're not seeing all the chapters or what's happening behind the scenes, and so I think it's important to remember that there's always much more going on. Dave, you brought up sports, and in my house, I have this little plaque hanging. It's a picture, and I remember I found it when I was on vacation years ago on a sister's trip with my mom and sisters, and it caught my eye because I love Norman Rockwell paintings. And this was a Norman Rockwell picture with this particular quote by Gartland Rice, and it's, "And when the one great scorer comes to write against your name, he writes not if you won or lost, but how you played the game."
There you go.
And that really hit me as you were talking about the power of sports and how that can break down barriers, but it also is that opportunity for us to realize that life is full of ups and downs. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, it's really how we treat other people and how we live our life. And I believe we're really seeing that because the bulk of what's being said about former President Jimmy Carter is not about what he did in the White House. It's about the way that he treated people, the way that he valued peace, the way that he was true to his principles. And I think that gives us a real opportunity to kind of remember what matters most.
Yeah. I agree.
You know, and that you talked about sports, and we're talking about that. And I remember one of our banquets, the night before, or sometime that week during our banquet, we were watching the game. It was a Monday night football game, and the kid took a real hard shot. I mean, this is a game. This is a big game, and this guy took a shot, and he died on the field, literally. And both teams, it was just beautiful to see the players come together, pray, fans coming together, just cheering for this one guy. And so that's in life. You know, we ought to get behind each other. When we fall down, as he was saying, Kyle's talking about the circumstances we have that might make us end up at the food bank. When we fall down, it's not something that's jovial for us to make light of. You know, life happens. Life really happens to us, and so we have to be careful, how we treat others, because eventually that life is going to happen to us as well.
Right,
So
it comes full circle.
it comes full circle.
I love that you shared that. I remember that, and what a powerful moment it was to see people coming together. And when we see examples of that, it is so inspiring. That kind of positivity and humanity really is contagious in the most beautiful way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is.
Hailey, as you are working a lot with young people, what is something that you see that is presenting some real challenges for our youth today?
Yeah, so something, and I would say, like, so with being a community college, we have like a pretty big variety of ages. We get people who are fresh out of high school, but we also get people who are sometimes closer in age to my parents than they are to like myself. Like it's a very interesting variety of demographics. But something we just haven't recovered from is like loneliness and isolation. There are certain groups that have less opportunities, like to meet people. Like there's, I think it's really hard for people outside of there's a few big groups, like religion's definitely one of them, where people have an easier time finding connection, but that's not everybody's thing, and that is perfectly fine. But the people who are outside of those communities have a really hard time finding that connection. And so loneliness and isolation, there's a lot of opportunities and events that just never really recovered or came back or aren't quite the same since the pandemic. And so I'd say loneliness is one of the big ones, and social media keeps us all so together but also so apart. I'm not trying to hate on social media, but I guess maybe I am a little bit. I don't know.
I just did it. It's okay.
But we're all so connected, but in such a superficial way, and people just are not connected the way they used to be. And I do worry about specific groups a lot more than others that just don't have those same opportunities to connect. And that's one thing that I'm not entirely sure what we need to do about it, but it's a problem.
It's here to stay too. Yeah, it's here.
Yeah.
So I keep saying I'm going to get rid of my cell phone when I retire, but we'll see.
I always think I'm going to get rid of my social media. I try, but then it comes back.
Yeah,
It is so ingrained into the way we live life now.
yeah.
So how do we make it better, to your point? How do
That's
we
the
not-
challenge, right?
How do we get back to those pre-pandemic activities?
Put your phone in grayscale. It makes social media not interesting. That's my tip.
Oh, that is a good tip.
Yeah,
I
works
feel
really
like
good.
I feel like Kyle's got an idea.
No. I was just gonna say I love the idea of getting off social media, but what am I gonna do without Facebook Marketplace?
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
How am I supposed to
Where are
find
you
all
gonna
these
find
good
your
deals?
things?
Right.
Petition for a separate app for you, maybe.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that I have said it before, and I will say it again. I really do think that just trying to get out in your community, and one of the easiest ways to do it is by finding groups to just go volunteer with, is a fantastic way to just get kind of outside of that little bubble that you're in, physically. You may be just in your house on your phone or something, but also just socially, politically. I know at the food bank we have a regular group of volunteers. They come in 3 times a week, and most of them are retired now, but they use it. It's like a social gathering. They come in and they hang out for a couple hours, and they're all friends, and they do stuff now, and it's just like a random assorted group of people that didn't really know each other beforehand, but now it's like this friend group almost that comes in regularly to just hang out while they're sorting through food at the food bank. And so in Idaho we have so many great nonprofits. You know, we're one of the leading states in the country for like the number of nonprofits that we have and like the nonprofit resources that we have in the state. And so there are just so many opportunities for people to get out and find something that they're passionate about, find a cause that they care about. And it's a great way to find other people who are like-minded, who have similar beliefs and values and who care about the same things. It's a great way to expand your horizons and to kind of get outside of that bubble, you know, that gets you off social media and gets you interacting with people in the community and kind of breaking down those barriers.
And shameless plug, really good for your brain. Just saying.
I believe that, yeah. I believe it.
No, that's a true story. You gotta stay social, stay active, and keep learning, and that is super good for your brain. Shameless plug over.
An important plug, though, and I'm glad you brought up this idea of loneliness, because the Surgeon General has declared it an epidemic, a loneliness epidemic. And you're so right. We see a lot of people who are alone together. You go to a restaurant and you see people with their head buried in their phone and they're sitting there waiting for their food, and they're together, but not really. And so I think the challenge is taking the good side of social media, but understanding that it's not a replacement for that face-to-face communication, that human interaction. And one of the things that frightens me, and I'm not trying to hate on AI, I know there are some benefits there, but artificial intelligence, in my mind and heart, is never going to be a substitute for that real human connection. And yet we hear stories over and over again of people somehow starting to believe that maybe AI can take the place of those social relationships. I mean, not that long ago, I reported about some young men wanting to marry their AI chatbots, and certainly they can program that chatbot to be exactly what they want, and there's less work involved. But I think we have to sound the alarm that there is just nothing like that real human connection.
I think it's a song says, ain't nothing like the real thing.
I love that song. It's true, Dave. Right.
You're not wrong. Well, I can't speak to, I don't know much about the AI, but I worry about the same thing, that we will lose our even more human connection. So keep volunteering.
Right.
This is how we circumvent that, is just to sit down with these. Again, we sit down and we talk. We get to, you know, I've met you guys, and I mean, it's been a great day for me. I've met 3 people that I have never seen before, and so it's really cool, because I just love people. Yeah, I love people, man, and so I just believe that if you have a conversation, you're going to find out that we have so much in common that how can I not like you? How can I mean, you know.
Well,
I
I was
don't
going to
know.
say the same thing. Coming here, I met you and you,
Yes,
and it's
yes.
so great. This is what it's about.
This is what it's about. You're
Yeah.
right. Yep.
It's about making those connections, and it's just so interesting how you can connect the dots, and it all does kind of go back to that power of one. And I say this all the time. I cannot tell you how many people I have interviewed in my career who are amazing. They are thought leaders and change makers, and yet they don't believe it. They don't think they are. They don't think there's anything special. So I say all the time, you do not need a special invitation to be a thought leader or a change maker. We're all born with the ability inside of us to be thought leaders, to be change makers, and right now, we need as many of those as we can get. So just step to the front of the line and shine like never before, because all that's required is to tap into what you already have inside. We all have unique strengths and abilities, and then just let those things shine.
Sure.
You said it great.
You know, there is a quote that Henry Ford said, and I really believe that it goes along a lot with what we're talking about. And our community, I believe, is in a unique position to lead out in so many important ways and be an example to the rest of the country. And the way that you build a better, stronger country is one strong community at a time. And he said, coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, and working together is success. And I think that's a simple process to follow. First, we've got to come together. Then we got to start, staying together. And then comes that working together and creating more unity. So there are obvious divides. What ways do you think we can actively kind of heal those divides?
Well, I can give same answer that I gave earlier, if you guys are not tired of me saying the same thing about getting involved in your community. But I really do deeply and passionately believe that getting out and getting involved in your community, meeting other people, meeting new people, learning new things, expanding your horizons, getting different perspectives on life. I think that really is kind of the core and the beginning of bridging divides that we have. And I know that, and I keep coming back to, working at the Idaho Food Bank, but we get to work with so many fantastic people and organizations and businesses all across East Idaho, because, we work with 70 or so different food pantries all across eastern Idaho, and they all bring something unique to the table. And we work with, tons of different donors and volunteers and stuff like that all across the region. And everybody is, coming from a different place, and they all have different perspectives, and they all have different skills and value that they can add to the conversation. But it doesn't really do anything or accomplish anything unless people are getting out and kind of coming together, figuring out how we can use those skills, what we can do with those resources. So getting out in your community and being able to get involved and figure out how you can give back to your community, I think is a very core component of starting to bridge those divides that we have.
Right.
I will jump on that too, because the more that part of my role, but also in life, is how can I support you? What is it that I can do to help your organization? That's part of my job, but it should be part of our regular lives. How can I support you? What can I do to help you be better, or give you a resource? And that, it really truly is, it goes back to that servicing your community or helping your neighbor, walking over and making sure your neighbor's doing okay, talking to them, going back across those lines. It's so important, and I think we've lost a little bit of that, and we've got to bring it back.
Yep, we have lost a little bit of that, and it's taking that extra step to kind of find out about those around us is something that's going to go a long ways in making a difference.
I think my thoughts on bridging the gap is that realizing that the way we view those gaps is oftentimes a bigger problem than the gaps themselves. In mental health, there are a lot of things, like when people get certain thoughts stuck in their head, it's not so much the thought, it's how they're viewing it and how much space that they're allowing it to consume them. And I think that when it comes to how we interact with others, it's really more about is that really as big of a deal as we're making it to be? Is it really a canyon, or is it a little tiny thing we can hop over and we can kind of come together on? And I think that that's a lot of the problem, is how it's viewed.
I love that. Reframing things can go a long ways in making a difference.
And we all have a part to play. I'm going back to thinking of a scripture, and I know everybody didn't possibly think this way, but some water, some plant, but that increase, and that's what we're doing. We're watering these seeds in our community, and we're watching these seeds grow. And if we continue to do this thing, the increase will be peace. We'll have a peaceable outcome if we can continue to do these things, getting to know each other, talking to each other, just sharing ideas. And once you become a friend, you become a friend to somebody. You don't want to hurt your friend, And I think it's important to, as Kyle said, to get out make friends. You know, he's met so many people at the food bank, and when you meet these people, they become friends, and you know, friends beget friends. You know, sheep beget sheep. You know, so it's just really cool to watch where Idaho Falls has come in the last. I said I've been here 42 years. It's come a long ways, and you know, it helps when your leadership. We have great leadership. Our mayor has been a champion of what we're doing, and you know, you have your community backing you. And I always share with Jolyn. She and I are from Utah, and so we're kind of Utah homies, you know.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and it's always I talk to people because we always have something in common. 6 degrees of separation. Everybody gets tired of hearing me say that, but I spoke to Jody. She is working with this dementia. I have a real good friend that she shared some information with me that will help me. I talked to Kyle. My brother works at the food bank, and so Kyle and me have something in common. And then Hailey and her friends over at CEI. I love those guys over there, Rick Heyman, and the new president there now. I mean, if I wouldn't have talked to these guys, they would know, hey, these are the things that we have in common. And so it's just cool. Now I'll have friends for life. I see these guys, they'll say, hey, there's Dave. Hey, how you doing? but anyway, it's just good, man. I mean, it's good. And so, and it's active. You have to take you have to want to be with people. A lot of people, like you said, this social media is isolating us. But you have to want to be with people. You have to want to see good things happen. And I think if we just talk, they will happen. Come to the banquet.
That's right. It's a great gathering.
Yes.
Yeah.
And speaking of that too, I will just say that a lot of people, I would almost bet that you guys have not heard of you may have heard of the Lionel Hampton Jazz Festival, but you didn't know that this band was in northern Idaho. The Lionel Hampton Band is right here. It's named after an iconic African-American composer, and it's right here in our community. And they're going to come and play for us. And I mean, these guys are world-renowned. They're not just somebody that picked up an instrument, but these are trained, skilled instrumental jazz musicians. And so it's going to be fun to have them come to eastern Idaho. And we just want all of you out there, all of the KID audience, come on out. Get a ticket, come to the banquet, and see what you've been missing.
Right. I'm very excited for the jazz band, the Lionel Hampton Jazz Band.
Yes,
I love jazz music, so they are iconic. And it is an event that over the years we've been able to see really bring our community together.
Yes.
There's been some growth. This is the 18th banquet, and a lot of growth. Lots
of growth, yes. And we there's so many friends now of the different businesses that one guy told me as we have a silent auction, and our silent auction it benefits the Mayor Scholarship Fund. And one of the guys told me, he says, Dave, I have you penciled in every year. Just come by and pick it up. You know, so okay, man, that's really cool. And that's another result of just talking to people and befriending people. I remember the Derail, the restaurant, they were just getting started. They didn't have, but he said, Dave, this last year we have been sold out every day, man. Every time we open, we're selling out. And I'm not saying that's because of him being donating to our banquet, but just sending people his way. He sends us gift cards, and we give them out at our silent auction, or somebody bids on them, and it sends people his way. And so, you know, he and I have gotten to be really good friends, and I just appreciate making those kind of connections with community people.
Connections are really what it's all about at the end of the day. And so I want to give each of you, we're almost out of time. Time just flies, doesn't it? I mean, this has been so much fun being able to chat with all of you. But I would love to give you each an opportunity just to maybe, if there is an example of how the power of one has touched your life, if you've seen someone who has made a difference, I'd love to end with just some really inspiring stories as we bring it right back full circle to the power of one. And as we are at the beginning of a brand new year and look forward to some great things, I believe focusing on that concept and buying into the power of one is something that can make a huge difference. So we will just, who would like to start? Anyone?
I'll start.
Great.
I recently spoke with someone who came to an education presentation of mine. And she took the information back and had a friend who was a nurse caregiving for her father and did not know about the Alzheimer's Association or really in any of the resources in the community that she could use to help caregive. And the person that came and then shared it, I was fascinated I'm always fascinated how one person comes, they hear something, and then they take it on to somebody else. I don't always get to hear back from them, but I did this time. And it made me think, finally, this is so great. And if we can all just share a little bit about what we do and what other people do in the community, it just makes such a difference. It really does.
It's all about blooming where you're planted. I love that story. It really does kind of showcase that when we give and share, it just really spreads far and wide.
Yeah, I would say I'm going to give a shout out to one of our partners that we work with at the Idaho Food Bank. It's Valley Mission down in Pocatello. They have done, I guess, the shout out is to Carl, the guy who kind of had this idea of expanding this resource for the community, and he has really developed this pantry into something so much more than a pantry. You know, they're doing all of these other like social services and like health services, and they're going to be, you know, working with people coming out of the prison, trying to integrate them back into society. And it's just, you know, he just has this vision of how he wanted to help support the community, and it's just, you know, he's been making it happen, and we've had a great partnership with them. But you know, it really does kind of speak to just the power of a single individual with a passion and a vision for how they can help and how they can support a community, and you know, it just kind of explodes and just blooms. And I just think that is really something that we should all be kind of keeping in mind, is that, you know, it doesn't take a lot. You know, it just starts with something little. You just maybe, again, I keep coming back to the food bank because that is, you know, what I'm thinking about all the time. But you just open up a little pantry and people start coming in, and then you start offering more resources and more people are coming to support you, and it just keeps growing and growing, and it's just this like singular idea, and maybe even starts with a single person, and now it's this, you know, massive boon to the Pocatello community for all sorts of resources. And so I just think it's really, really a powerful thing to kind of keep in mind.
That showcases that one person can make a monumental change. He took something that was dedicated to nourishing the body and is now nourishing the soul as well, and that's a beautiful thing. Hailey, how about for you?
Yeah, so I have like it's a very, very short story to kind of when I sort of realized this and how it really changed things for me. I went to a training and like for mental health, and when you go to these, they make you practice on each other because nobody else is going to let you practice something other than other counselors. Like nobody else wants that, which is totally fair. And so it's a very structured modality. It's really hard to get a handle on, and I like bombed it like the first time. And so the instructor was like, "What'd you learn?" And because the thing is, my partner was like, "Well, that was actually like still really helpful." And they were like, "Well, what'd you learn?" I'm like, "I learned that doing something poorly is still better than just not doing it. Like, did it awful, but like still made a difference." And I think that when it comes to like reaching out to people, like serving in other capacities, like we are probably going to mess it up like in some way or another, but it's still better than not doing it. Like the intention is there. Like people do get really like feel like they have to have all the answers when they're like talking to somebody who's struggling, but really like you can even be like, "I don't know, what do you need? Do you want a taco? Like what's going on?" Like 'cause I don't know, tacos do fix quite a bit for a lot of people, but I think that just whatever we can do, like being thought of is really what matters. And whether it's like we all have those thoughts where we're like, maybe I should text that person, maybe I should stop by, and like whatever that means, whether that's something, whether you view that as something spiritual or something else, like is, you know, your own kind of business. But like when I know that like none of us are perfect at like acting on those, but we have those thoughts. Like really, that's how we foster that connection, is making sure that even if it's a mess of a text, even if it's like we do not have our stuff together and we're trying to help other people, it's the connection and the thought. Because I remind my students often, like, you know, when you get a text from someone, you're struggling, are you like, do you pull out your rubric and are you like, well, structure wise, like that was like kind of terrible, like spelling error, like we're just happy they thought of us, and we're just happy for the connection. And I think that keeping that in mind, of looking at that from the other end, can help us be kinder to ourselves and make a bigger difference in that way.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think we all sometimes second guess ourselves, especially in those difficult moments, because we don't want to say something to make it worse. We don't want to fall short. But you're so right. Taking that step and just coming from the heart, you don't have to be perfect. It's just about the intention of being there. I love that. Dave.
Everyone has talked about examples, and I remember the idea behind getting our group started, and I never would imagine that I would be doing this. I hate talking in front of people. I'm not a. That's why Jolyn is so vital to our group. She's and it's funny, we think alike too, and so I know she's going to say just what I want to say, and when she comes to sit down, I say, I was going to say that, But anyway, my mom was really important to me. I guess I hate to admit this on camera, but I was a mama's boy, and
no shame in that.
She really inspired me. She was a school teacher for 28 years in the public school system, and she always told me. I remember her coming to one of our banquets. She said, "Son, I am so proud of you." And she just knew how to inspire me. And when I ended up, she said, "You ought to go back to school and get your degree." And when I did that, she came up. She was sick. I graduated in 2012. I started school early, and I quit, and then I came back. And 2012, when I graduated, she couldn't make it to my graduation, but they told me she watched the video. Somebody was videotaping it, and she cried. And when they told me that, I cried. And so, these things, as I grew up, we always had people in our house. She was always taking care of someone. As I said to Kyle, she started the food bank in Utah, and she wanted to have a home for women that when they came out of incarceration, they would have a place to go so they can get a fresh start and get some counseling, before they got back out into it. And that was her dream, and that was her desire. And so really the African American Alliance just kind of, we're catapulting off of some of the things that she shared with me. Sit down, eat with people, get to know them, love people. And that's where we are. 18 years later, we're still here, still doing it. And so pretty good advice, I guess.
Excellent advice. Thank you all so much, Dave and Hailey and Kyle and Jody, for being here and sharing your perspective with all of us. KID crew, thank you so much for tuning in. And a great big shout out to Gandolfo's for providing our delicious lunch. And we cannot thank the folks at Classic Interiors enough for powering Table Talk. Table Talk is all about having those important conversations that are going to allow us to drive forward and create more unity in our community. I hope you'll come out and join us at the 18th annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. banquet. Everyone is welcome. It's at the Mountain America Center, 6 to 9. You'll be able to hear the Lionel Hampton Jazz Band. They're iconic. And hear from our keynote speaker, Dr. Pete Miller. I'm telling you what, I can't wait, because chatting with him, he's got a lot of wisdom, and he's going to share a lot with us about the power of one. Thanks again, and be sure to go say hi to Classic Interiors. Mark and his team will take good care of you and help you find the perfect table so that you can host your own table talk with your family and friends. Thanks so much, KID crew. Have a great day.
Thank you.